thank you, all of you, for inviting me to speak with you today at the HARC Luncheon. It is truly an honor, and as a stroke survivor with aphasia, as many of you may well understand, wonderful times. I came back home and had my coffee. Later on, I went for a run and raced my son George up and down the Stanford dish, which is a 3-mile path. When we finished, I started to feel funny. When I got home, I told my son, George, I'll have to go up to lie down. I went up to my bedroom, walked over to my bed, and that is when the stroke happened. A piece of my blocked carotid artery broke off and became lodged in my brain. I collapsed on the bed. Funnily enough, I thought my life was over. A strange feeling of peace passed through my body because I thought I was going to die. When I came to, I was in the emergency room at Stanford Hospital. My wife was at my side, but unfortunately, I couldn't speak. They tried to do TPA, but it was too late. Luckily, however, my ability to read and think was intact, and I recognized my family. We all know not being able to talk is a real problem, but for an English Irishman known for the gift of the gab, this was particularly disconcerting. Unfortunately, as my stroke flowered over the course of the following day, I could hardly lift my right hand, and worst of all, I could no longer repeat sentences, and I could only say 2 words. These were no and yeah. I was an Englishman, and I couldn't even say yes. My stroke was caused by a piece of plaque which broke off from a blocked carotid artery. Although I had faithfully had yearly checkups, I had no idea a blocked artery and was at risk. In fact, as some of you might know, 70% of all strokes are caused by just the same type of plaque build-up I had, and can be prevented if diagnosed with ultrasounds. So in my case, 3 years ago, unfortunately, I didn't know I needed to do this. So if you remember nothing else from my speech today, please get yourself checked out with ultrasounds. Plus, the number of younger people worldwide who are having strokes is the fastest growing segment of stroke cases. Anyway, I was hooked up to machines for 10 days in the ICU with people dying around me. They were dying. I really wanted to get out of there, but the doctors couldn't keep my blood pressure high enough to stop further damage to my brain. So there I was, sharing the room with 5 other people, some of whom died, and they were replaced by other terminally ill patients. And I couldn't say more than 2 words. I am reminded of Christopher Hitchens, who said before his death last year, to a great degree in private, I was my voice. That's me. I was my voice. I had to get my voice back. Needless to say, the doctors weren't very optimistic about them. A few weeks after I had the stroke, I went outside of my room into the ward in the evening. A male member of staff rushed up to me like a prison guard, and he said, "You are not allowed to be here." He then hauled me back. "Go back into your room now." Here I was, an intelligent man over the age of 40, yet I could not explain the most basic concept that I was going stir crazy in my room and just needed a little time outside of it. I'm unable to explain myself. I was then marched back to bed. I started to laugh, and I just laughed and laughed and laughed because of the irony. He later came and apologized to me. After a month at Stanford, I was finally able to leave. Unfortunately, they didn't have HARC where we live. In many ways, Stanford, as wonderful as it is, didn't have an inpatient stroke facility. So I went from Stanford to a stroke center in San Francisco. By this point, I could move my arm a little better with a lot of vessel, but I dragged my right foot and still had only the vocabulary of 10 words. One of these, by the way, was wow. By the way, my family have said that if they ever hear me say the word wow again, they won't whoop you. Little by little, I started to make myself clearer through speech therapy. Needless to say, I was the most difficult patient in the center. As a family, we investigated every possible way for me to get better and tried every method from traditional speech therapy and occupational therapy to alternative methods. I spent every minute I could to try to get better. I settled into a 7-day-a-week routine with a speech therapist, Lisa Levine Storer, a complete angel, by the way. Subsequently, I went to Harvard to undergo therapy for 6 weeks with electromagnetic treatment under Dr. Slog and another speech therapist angel, Andrea Newton. Later, I started TMS with Dr. Anik Aitken at Stanford. Now, Dr. Aitken is a brilliant young man, and he explained to me what has happened. This is it. Right. Right, on the right-hand side, you have a right-hand side on my brain. On the left-hand side, that's me. My brain is missing. My brain is missing. This is Dr. Anthony Aitken, who has really done a very good job. I also, could you put the, could you, yeah. I also suffered through hyperbaric oxygen treatment. I met with Indian healers and Chinese acupuncturists. To my certain knowledge now, none of them work. Whenever we read or heard about someone who knew of some way to improve my recovery, we followed through, and as soon as I could, I started having business meetings and getting back to speed for work. Still, there were days and nights that were hard. I'm sure some of you have gone through that. There were times when I was down. I have never been a person who likes to take medicine, but my sister-in-law, who is a psychiatrist, found out there are some drugs that have been scientifically proven to aid in speech and stroke recovery. I tried Namenda, didn't stick with it. Provigil, fighter pilots take it on the other hand, and it has truly helped me at times. And when I was really, really down, I ignored the negative comments, and I took centrally. This, I seriously recommend you taking whatever you need to take. But most importantly, for any of you here today who have aphasia or family or friends who are recovering, I stand before you to say, never give up. I repeat, never give up. Anything is possible. Anything is possible if you continue to believe it is, and if you keep working at it. Optimism and sheer determination are essential to our recovery. Like many of you here today, in order to recover my speech, I've had to relearn everything I used to be familiar with, including shifting the language control from my left side of my brain to the right. I have had to make incredible efforts in order to speak again. Frankly, it has been the most difficult thing I have ever done. Running an organization with 11,000 people and negotiating with the toughest business leaders is nothing in comparison. I was told I would never row again, yet 10 months after my stroke, I raced ahead of the Charles and was only 1 minute of my previous time. I was told by the doctors I would never be able to work again, yet a year after my stroke, I returned to Intel, and a year and a few months later, I was made chairman of Intel China. I am going to continue to improve my English, and I also started to learn Chinese, which is what I've always wanted to do. And my Chinese is going quite well. I am continuing to improve my speech. I speak better today than I did a few months ago, and I will be even better by the summer. Eventually, I will speak to the point where perhaps no one will be able to tell I had a stroke. We shall see. Mencius, who I believe is the most influential Confucian after Confucius, once said, one must first suffer from mental and physical pains so that you can be firm in mind and body, and therefore you will be capable where previously you are not. My conclusions. All of you here today will get your carotid arteries checked with ultrasounds, right? And remember, never give up. Trust me. I am glad to be alive, to talk and to run, and to be with my family. So never give up, because as we know from Houston Aphasia Recovery Center, there is nothing so precious as the ability to understand and to be understood. And with enough practice and continued belief, this is possible. Thank you very much.